Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about World War II. So as we all know, World War II is a terrible topic. Nobody really wants to talk about because of how gruesome it was. The Holocaust was bad. The Japanese people did were bad, and it was just a big war. So first I'm going to start off what was World War II. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. It was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945, involving almost over 30 countries. There were two military alliances formed, the Allies and the Axis. And World War II launched countries into a state of total war. It became the deadliest conflict in human history with an estimated death of 50 to 85 million. And many of these deaths were caused by the Holocaust and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So now I'm going to talk about, what were the causes of World War II? So I'm going to talk about 5 causes. So the first one is the unresolved issues of the Treaty of Versailles. So this treaty just really wasn't fair to Germany, and it would have enraged them. Appeasement would mean that everybody except Germany felt like they were at peace and content with where they were at. The next reason is Hitler's invasion of Poland, which could be seen as other countries as a threat and a warning, right? Another one is failure of the League of Nations. So the League of Nations was a League of Nations, and it just didn't make things fair for all countries. And then the Great Depression and the rise of dictatorships, which the Great Depression it's alone I could talk about. And then the rise of dictatorships, it was when these single people were getting so much power. So I'm gonna talk about the Treaty of Versailles because this was really a starting point of World War II. So Germany lost land and were forced to take the blame of World War I, and they had to lose part of their military, and Germany wanted to strike back at the people who did this to them. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit about Hitler invading Poland. So Hitler formed an alliance to defend Poland, and they just wanted to fight Poland basically, because Hitler didn't really enjoy Poland. He didn't like it. So when he went against it, it was just a really big thing, and people were just ready for Germany to really be a leader. And the way that he justified his attack on Poland was that he made people think that the Germans were the master race and they were just above everybody else. So after his invasion on Poland, Britain and France made an alliance to fight Germany because they had an alliance with Poland. And the German military had size, wealth, and experience. So he was ready. They were ready for everything. And after Poland surrendered to the Germans, the Germans started to kill a bunch of Jewish people, which, as we know, the Holocaust stemmed from this. So what I'm going to talk about now is the Blitz, which was basically when Germany invaded London. So they launched a bombing attack against civilians in London. And you may ask, how did the London Air Force use radar to give them an advantage during the attacks? And that radar was very advanced for the time, and it could respond to attacks. But the Germans wanted to destroy the British cities. That was their main goal. So they dropped the bombs on civilians. And as a response, England bombed Berlin. And Hitler changed the strategy to decimating British cities. And basically, children were evacuated, city dwellers had shelters built, and blackouts were enforced. This killed many people and destroyed the cities. And the government thought that they were fine like the people were fine and they didn't end up giving them resources, which forced people to go in shelters. And Hitler eventually called this off because he didn't want the Soviets. He didn't want to have to fight the Soviets because they were very powerful and Hitler didn't have enough air power to fight them. And during the Blitz, it allowed Britain to regroup their military. So now I'm going to talk about the Navajo Code Talkers. And this was the way that the U.S. could communicate. And they used the Navajo language, which no other countries could understand, to communicate, which was the only tribe in the U.S. that was not infested with German students. So no one knew the language. And they talked in code for the Marines, and they made it easier to transmit messages. And without the Navajo Code Talkers, the Germans would know the plans of the U.S. Now I'm going to talk about probably the worst thing, one of the worst things that's ever happened in history, which was the Holocaust. So this was basically a time where Germany killed many Jewish people and other racial groups. So it was called a genocide, and a genocide was basically something that involves killing, and there is a couple main things that basically classify genocide. There's 5 things. So the first one is killing members of the group, which many Jewish people were killed. Second one is causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Third one is deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. The fourth one is imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And the fifth one is forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, which this happened a lot during the Holocaust. So, the Holocaust killed more than 6 million Jewish people by the Nazis, and the definition was the systematic, bureaucratic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jewish people by the Nazi regime and its collaborators. And the word Holocaust means sacrifice by fire, which you can see just by the name of it. You already know it wasn't good. So there were around 6 million Jewish people killed, and they were killed by gas chambers, burning alive, and stuff like that. It was terrible. They were just abused, enslaved, and one thing that is very, very important that caused most of this and this hate against the Jews, was anti-Semitism, was dehumanization. Dehumanization was used by the Germans so that Hitler used it to have the Nazis believe that they were superior to everyone else and not look at everyone else as people. And when this happens, you don't treat the people as people no more. If you really think about it, I'm gonna give an example. Like an animal, I'm gonna say a cow, right? So people are slaughtering cows and stuff, and most people just don't look at the cow as a human, right? Which is not in this case. But since these were actually humans being killed, and they kind of looked at them like they were animals. They looked at them like they could just be used and abused and stuff, but they were hurt and stuff like that. Alright, so now I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. And so what happened during the Holocaust? So the Nazis believed that they were the purest race, and people that were killed were Jews, political figures, disabled people, non-Aryan people. And 3 examples taken by the Nazis that were anti-Semitic, where they would mark businesses as Jewish and they would blame all the problems Germany had on the Jewish. And the goal of the Nazi propaganda against Jews was for the Germans to believe that the Jews were not people. The Nazis also prevented Jews from leaving Germany by taking their passports and putting them in ghettos, which were small slums almost like small neighborhoods with many Jewish people packed into them. It was very nasty and dirty. There were mobile killing squads in Eastern Europe, which main goal was to kill Jews around the nation. And the killing of Jewish people, Hitler said that it was to make Germany great again. And when Jewish people arrived at concentration camps, they were separated by gender, and then the men were further separated to see if they were in working fit. Some passed away and worked, while everyone else, just like, they were tortured and killed. And there were killing centers which cleansed Germany of Jewish people, as what they said. And people from outside of Germany just couldn't understand why the Germans would have these concentration camps. So if we look at who's responsible for the Holocaust, it was the Germans and the Nazis. Well, it was the Nazis, and most of all Hitler. And at the end of the Holocaust and World War II, the Nuremberg trials were put in place to prosecute like all the Nazi leaders, which put them to jail for what they were doing. The final thing I'm going to talk about is the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which was a surprise attack on the U.S. by Japan. Many people were killed. There were many government vehicles, such as planes and ships, sunk on both sides from Japan and the U.S. were badly damaged. And there's still a ship upside down in Hawaii that you can visit in Pearl Harbor, which is a reminder of what happened. And this event killed roughly 2,500 people.